Today with us, we have Joker, who is going to tell us about his experiences. I don't know what else to say.
It's not easy, is it?
Well, I
No,
wouldn't.
we got the opening.
Yeah, finally. It only
Here,
took 5 times.
let's. We
Introduce
don't need to
yourself.
redo that one, all right?
Introduce yourself, and then
Today with us,
co-host.
we have Joker.
By the way, I think I'm going to lead most of this in anyway, because this is great stuff.
God damn it! I don't know what we can put.
Someone
wanna go right
didn't
into
prepare.
Welcome to Raven's Whispers Across the Nine Realms, a podcast where Norse myth meets modern minds. We explore the realms of mental health, gaming, and community. One story, one conversation, one whisper at a time.
To Raven whisper, north winds cry, where truth is hidden in the sky. Through 9 realms wide and time grown cold, we seek the wisdom of the old. With axe and shield, with heart unbent, for honor's call our fate is set. We rise as one beneath the storm. To Raven whisper, we are sworn.
Today with us, we have Joker, who is the C.O.O. of TROA. My co-host today is Gamble, the VP of TROA. How you doing today, Joker?
I'm good. It's not so easy being on the other side of the seat, is it?
No, but that was perfect, and you just messed it up.
No, I didn't. We're still good.
We can edit. Yeah.
Now we're just talking.
All right. Well, so how are you doing today, Joker?
I had a nap. I'm actually great right now.
Yeah, I bet that nap was better than you.
Alrighty then.
Okay. I was about to say that. Yeah, I bet that nap was better. No, I'm not gonna say that's fucked up. All right. Today we have some pre-made questions. Joker already knows about them, and we want to make sure that that he understands his questions, and we're not going to go off kilter, or we're not going to go off into the deep. We might go off into the deep end, but Joker, can you go ahead and tell us about your mental health journey?
Yeah. Really, everything kind of started with me at a young age. I'm actually a 3-time survivor of suicide. My first attempt was when I was 7 years old. Growing up, I mean, I was the youngest of 12 siblings. So I had 11 other siblings. I'm the youngest of 12 in my family. However, I was also, for most of my life, raised as if I was an only child because all my other siblings were 8+ years older than me. And matter of fact, when I was born, I had a nephew and a niece born less than 6 months later. So I've always had family around, but I didn't have the typical environment that everybody else did either when it comes to like sibling rivalry or any of that, or growing up with the protection of your siblings. And being a ginger, of course, you know, back in the 90s were brutal, man. So I got picked on a lot. By the time I was 7, we were living in Georgia. Getting picked on, not having really anybody that I could feel like I could talk to because both my parents worked. I got to a point where I was just done with it at 7 and attempted to hang myself. Well, thankfully that didn't work out. Moved on for a little while. And then the next time, due to bullying in school and whatnot, among other things, losing some family members young at 14, I made my second attempt. And this time it was more of an opportunity that I used, and it was a firearm, a .357. I say thank the gods above that the brand new box of ammunition was all primer duds. So I wasn't successful in that attempt either, because I tried to play Russian roulette with myself and a full 50 round box of .357 mag. But after that one, growing up as a Southern Baptist kid, you know, I was like, oh, maybe the Christian God has got something for me, plans for me. Of course, I didn't really know much back then, but I went through school, like got into high school, and life seemed to go pretty well. I kind of accepted my nerdiness and my gingerness and joined the Army at 17, you know, right after, a year after 9/11, almost to the day. It was September 14th that I actually signed the paperwork, but I think my official start was September 15th, 2002. And got into some good stuff, got a full-time position with the National Guard here in South Carolina. I became an instructor eventually once I got my sergeant rank in 2007, I think. Yeah, 2007. And then life really kicked me in the teeth because, I mean, I was young and dumb making active duty type money, street racing, messing around with girls. You know, I'm 22. I'm living the high life, making $50,000 a year, street racing, making more. And I get into 2008 and I'm supposed to go on leave. You know, I just finished filming the second episode of Army Wives that I was in, season 2. I had 2 episodes in that season that I was in. So I got actually paid as an actor. That was fun. And
I did not know that about you.
yeah, I try to.
Okay, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, so it was if you want to look up later, it's Army Wives season 2, episodes 5 and episode 13. They have a military honors section in both of those episodes toward the end, and yes, you can clearly see my face. Now, that's if you know what I look like without the beard. But I was on the first one, on episode 5. I was in, it was a little movie magic that's not so magic. I was on the casket team for the flag fold and also on the rifle team where you really see my face clearly. But the season 13 or episode 13, I was just on the flag fold. So it was pretty dope. Got to meet Catherine
Well, there you
Bell.
have it, everyone. You got
TROA
Joker,
has an
the
actor
Army
in its
Wives.
use.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Those two snippets of scenes that I was in each took 8 or 9 hours. It's literally only a 3-minute scene. But yeah, so after that it's going into the summertime and getting ready to go out drinking with some friends. I was over at my parents' house because I was staying with them again after some financial misfortunes. And I was sitting on the couch right before I go out talking to my dad about both of us quitting smoking. Quitting cold turkey, pretty much what we had as far as cigarettes would be it. Mom was doing dishes in the kitchen, and I go to leave. I tell them all goodbye, I love them, what have you. Go out drinking, getting pissed drunk. Surprised I think, I'm hoping one of my friends ended up driving my car back and then dropping me off, but want to say it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and made it back to my bed because the next morning it probably wasn't even 8 o'clock, and my dad busts through the door, and all I can hear is, she's on the floor, she's not responding. And I can tell you that's the quickest I ever sobered up, because I jumped up, ran into the bathroom, and there was my mother laid out on the bathroom floor. Turns out she was sitting on the toilet blowing her nose, which was a normal routine for her. And she had an aneurysm bust in her head. So a blood vessel, basically a brain bleed. We got her to the hospital. There was really no saving her. It was a week. We waited for all the family to come in from all over the United States. And the decision was we could keep her on life support until she stabilizes on her own, or we let her go. And if anybody knows my mother, she was not the type to enjoy life as a vegetable. Because she, like literally the day prior to her passing away, or the day before she had the aneurysm, was her doing a push mower on an acre and a half of land by herself. Like, this woman never quit. Even when she was sick, she was working. And that's when I realized, or started to learn about life at 22 years old, because I just lost the one woman that actually I cared about the most, that did anything and almost everything for me, my disciplinarian, everything. And I'm watching my entire family lose their shit uncontrollably, to include my father, who wasn't really there for me like you'd think a father would be that's in your life. But he was sobbing and everything else. My siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. And I felt like I had to step up and be the rational one. And so I shut everybody out. I thankfully didn't end up in the bottom of a bottle consistently, but I got real angry, real dark towards just about anybody that crossed me. And I was starting to heal, because me and my father were finally trying to build a relationship with each other. And in November, I'm off at National Guard doing a PT test, a physical fitness test, annual for the unit. And as I do so, I'm in the 2 mile run, and I'm about 1.5 miles in, and essentially my right side gives out, bad nerve damage. I go down so bad that it looks like I got thrown from a motorcycle without a helmet. Half my face is cut up from the asphalt. And I was getting ready to get transported to Fort Gordon, Georgia from our unit to get seen since I was on duty. And in that process, I had someone else get my phone out of my car, and I noticed that I had 27 missed calls and 30 text messages. Half of those missed calls had associated voicemails to them. And the only one that I could understand as far as voicemails was my oldest niece at the time, who was staying with us, saying, "Grandpa had another heart attack. He's on the way to the hospital." So 3 months after losing my mother, I also lost my father. As anybody can imagine, losing both my parents within 3 months of each other in 2008, I completely shut down. There was nothing anybody could tell me. At that point, I was in the bottom of a bottle almost consistently, and it stayed that way for a very long time. Even working security at a hospital, becoming a shift supervisor, I was constantly drinking, a workaholic, not paying attention to my body, I was smoking, drinking. I wasn't doing drugs because I was still in the military, but
you were trying to keep yourself occupied because of all the pain, right?
Yeah, I was trying to just black out all the pain, like working out all the time. If I wasn't working, I ended up actually the heaviest I ever was late or early 2009 into 10. I got up to 205, which for me that was huge, at like a huge weight gain, because I was working out all the time and whatnot. Relationships, I just let go. I turned into a man whore. I didn't care about anybody. Surprised I was able to keep any friends. Then 2011 came around and my unit got its deployment notice to Afghanistan. We ended up going, of course. So I spent what seems like an eternity, but I was in Afghanistan from November 2011 until, I want to say, or late May in Afghanistan, because in the beginning of May, I got injured where I had a vehicle called a Max Pro. It's one of the new MRAPs. Most people will know what it looks like because it became like an LA SWAT vehicle where the armored door literally lays down as a ramp. But I was the master operator for the unit on all the MRAPs, so I became my team's driver while he was on leave. And it was a rental because the week prior, the Afghans, in their wonderful glory, ran one of the Humvees they got from us earlier in the war up under our truck, which knocked the entire rear axle out. So the one we were currently in was a rental. And when I went to go get some water out of the front seat, we had to park extra close to the barrier walls, and the hydraulics fucked up on it. And these doors weighed, I want to say, 700-ish pounds with a hydraulic jack that assists in opening and closing it. And the hydraulics flung it open and pinned me against my left arm against the barrier wall. Well, it was quite difficult to try and close said door, because anybody that knows about these vehicles, the interior handle is quite high, like a good 2 foot from the bottom of the door. And there's a big plastic casing that covers the inner workings of these doors from the inside. They're probably, I want to say, 2 or 3 inches of plastic deep. And then you've got another 3 inches of layered armor to the outer door or to the outside of the door, and then the handle is probably another foot up from the bottom of it as well. And with all my gear on, helmet, vest, weapon, I couldn't reach the inside because it was all bogging me down so my body wouldn't stretch. And I couldn't reach up under the door to activate the outside handle because of how I was pinned. Because if you put your left arm up in the air, like it's to where your shoulder is straight up, and then bend your elbow 45 degrees, that's the angle I was in. And being on the ground, because I fell off of the step when the door pushed my arm against the wall. So I was in a very awkward position. One, just naturally with my arm up and angled 45 degrees. I also couldn't reach either component because of the door and my gear. These are big ass diesel engine, Caterpillar engines roaring. So the gunner I had in the truck couldn't hear me because it was an open turret versus the C.O.O system, which is kind of like a video game where it's a camera mounted on a gun down to a joystick in the seat inside. So he couldn't hear me. And the size of the truck, the gunner behind me couldn't see me in the truck behind me because of how wide these vehicles were. And I didn't have my radio on me because I didn't have a radio at that point as a driver because I should have been inside anyway. So no matter the amount of calling out I could have done would have helped. So next thing I know, I'm stripping all my combat gear and armor off of my body to try and manipulate one of the two handles to close the door. And it felt like an eternity, but from what I could gather, it was probably 20, 30 minutes of essentially being alone and exposed to a hostile environment. And I finally got my arm loose. And that's when I found out that I had a piece of metal that stuck out of the concrete wall go through my arm. And by that point, I couldn't feel my hand or my arm anyway. But I ended up with nerve damage in my left arm. And it took me about a month to finally decide to get it checked out outside of a combat zone because I felt horrible. One, that I had this simple injury, what seemed simple at the time, that just prevented me from using my pinky and ring finger on my left hand. And they were pinned down. I should have been able to get back out there and do something in my mind. And I was talking to my lieutenant, who ended up being our captain after Afghanistan. And after about 2 weeks of talking to him, I was finally like, okay, yeah, you can, I'll go back. We'll see what they say. So they sent me to Landstuhl, Germany, or Landstuhl Medical Facility in Germany. And this was the end of May. And I spent a month there getting testing done, and I still couldn't use half my hand. I couldn't even feel it. I mean, that was 2012, and I still can't feel half my hand today. But I was finally able to use it. But as I was leaving Landstuhl, actually, I was sitting at Frankfurt, Germany's airport at the USO, and I got a message on a phone that I bought while I was in Germany, and the early days of Messenger, and got a message from someone back at the States saying, "Are y'all okay?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm in Germany. I'm on my way back to the States. I got injured." I mean, yeah, I'm okay. No, the unit, are y'all okay? I'm like, what are you talking about? They got hit. It was one of the girlfriends of one of our soldiers because she couldn't talk to him anymore. And when I went to reach back, platoon got hit, and that was it. and then they went total information blackout, which I found out later. One of our platoons was out on what they call bat and hides. It's biometric scanning that does iris scans and fingerprints. And they like to have what they call the bat and hide races to collect as much biometric data as you could on locals. Well, this platoon was out in the middle of coast city in Salerno area of Afghanistan, which is nicknamed Rocket City because all the military bases are at the base of a mountain. And anyway, so they get hit by a suicide bomber because the vehicle got stopped by our unit. And when the vest went off, of course, he died. The Afghan died. But out of my unit, or that platoon, the lieutenant, the E7, which is the platoon sergeant, so the platoon leader and the platoon sergeant, and one of the soldiers, enlisted soldiers, who was next to the other two, got the direct blast. And then all the NCOs, all the sergeants, staff sergeant and E5 sergeants were also on the ground when it went off. And then a couple of different specialists or E4s. But the entire leadership of an entire platoon got wiped out in one go, except for one NCO who no one could really tell what he was doing, but he was unscathed because he wasn't where he was supposed to be. The medic also, the medic of the platoon also got hit. He had half of his thigh blown off. But that was the incident that happened in with the unit in 2012 while I was at the USO in Frankfurt Airport. Of course, I didn't know all that at the time. I didn't know it until I got back to Fort Gordon at the wounded transition unit there, where I met one of the special.
So do you know how many survived?
So the only ones that actually died during that were those three individuals. There was one of the NCOs who lost a leg to the injury, like completely had to be amputated. One NCO lost, she lost some fingers. And then, of course, like I said, the medic had half of his thigh blown off. One of the gunners who later was an instructor with me and then became our readiness NCO, he had a ball bearing go through his leg, and he's how I found out what happened when I got back to Augusta or Fort Gordon. But yeah, so the rest of that platoon survived, but all the NCOs, the leadership that could have taken over, were maimed or injured in some way at that point in time that they could not assist or could not take lead. It was actually a specialist, an E4, who was a gunner that stepped up when that E5 that wasn't where he was supposed to be. And from what I've heard, I haven't talked to the individual himself, but from what I've heard from others that were there, he was pretty much mentally incapacitated after that. But that's neither here nor there.
That's a big hit.
Yeah, that was a big hit. And if he was where he was supposed to be, he probably would have also been maimed or injured. But this specialist, while I got my ears out to get my headphones back right, this specialist got up, got on the radio, got the ones that weren't as injured together to collect bodies, pull security, and got on the radio, called in the 9 line. And unfortunately, we didn't have availability for air transport, so our own unit got to the location, picked up the bodies, and took them to the main base medical facility. That specialist now, like today, is now a captain, and he is actually the commander of the same unit that he served in Afghanistan. the sister unit to the one I was in when I retired. He's a commander now.
It's full circle.
Yeah. And he's actually the rear det AO area officer, or basically like an executive officer to the battalion commander, because our battalion commander is on their way back from a deployment. So he was the acting battalion commander as well for the MPs, military police. Yeah, so in 13 years, he went from a specialist gunner to the acting battalion commander.
If he had stepped up, when they needed him to, the WIAs could have very well, become KIAs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, if someone, because they immediately got, from what I've heard, of course, I wasn't there. I was in blackout rage when all that, or right after all that happened, as far as timeline wise. But right. I actually woke up on the plane back to the States in cuffs with a U.S. or a marshal sitting next to me, because I blacked out with anger and rage and depression from hearing that and putting two and two together. Because apparently I was trying to fight my way in Germany to get back to Afghanistan. But
I can only imagine hearing your unit takes a hit like that.
Well, like I said, I didn't even know the extent of it. I didn't know how many were injured. I didn't know who got hit as far as our unit, because our unit was split up across that region of Afghanistan. We had my platoon in one area attached to an airborne unit. We had another 2 platoons in a different area above in the city on the ridge line. There was an old Afghan castle that they were staying in. So we were essentially everywhere. So when I got to Fort Gordon, it was like maybe a day or two. And then my buddy showed up, the gunner that got a ball bearing through his thigh. And that's when I started to hear everything, the full gravity of the situation, what happened. And of course, at that point, I'm not thinking about me at all and my mental health. I'm trying to help him. And I'm literally repacking his wound to make sure it stays clean, because he couldn't reach behind his thigh at that point because of the overexertion to just about every tendon in his body from having a piece of metal go through his leg and almost shatter his femur. But
absolutely.
So, and he's wheelchair bound at that as well. Like, he couldn't even walk with crutches for the first week and a half, 2 weeks we were there. So, and I'm just listening to the story of what he remembers and how he remembers it, and not even thinking anything of it. And then I'm getting nightmares myself because of how detailed he is. And I'm seeing that it's helping him. So I'm not saying anything about my own like trauma that I'm getting off of him. And not even realizing that I'm getting survivor's guilt from it too, because I'm getting messages from guys still back in Afghanistan, because I'm out. Like, we get weekends off if you're in a wounded, especially from a deployment, because active duty, they only work Monday through Friday. They don't do shit on the weekends. So because I was, I guess, healthy enough to leave post, I could leave post. And I was going out fucking drinking because I was literally trying to forget everything from that week from Afghanistan. And so, yeah. And then people around me are taking pictures, posting and tagging me and shit on Facebook. And the guys back in Afghanistan are seeing that, and I'm getting berated from them. And anyway, so I'm there with him for probably a good month and a half, 2 months. I can't even remember now. And then they finally release me from the thing, and I go back to the rear. And of course, again, I'm not there to help him, and I feel fucking useless. So what do? I put myself in the bottom of a bottle again, trying to forget everything. And it just goes on and whatnot. And I get complacent within the military after the unit comes back. I kind of lost motivation to move, to advance. And then they promote me out. I become an instructor, or that's how I got my promotion to 6 in 2018. And I learned about resiliency. Of course, I'm sorry, I forgot. I made poor choices after Afghanistan and actually ended up homeless in 2015. And I was working, still in the Guard, and homeless for 6 months in South Georgia. My squad leader is the one that kind of rescued me from that situation, allowed me to stay with him and work on his family's farm to get back on my feet, where I learned a lot of trade stuff and farming. That was awesome. And that was actually the beginning of my recovery journey from a very, very, very dark place. And I went to school for resiliency, which is the Army's mental health program for advocacy and mental health assistance and training, and became a resiliency trainer. Came back, started teaching that, but going through that class with the Army, being certified resiliency, definitely saved my life from a 4th attempt, because the 3rd attempt, which I forgot to mention, was the day my dad passed away. I went home to an empty house and gathered some things to go stay with my then fiance. She came in probably 5 minutes later, and I was laid out on the kitchen floor, blacked out, with a blade in my hand, my left hand, and my right arm cut open. If she would have taken maybe 30 seconds longer to come check on me, I probably would have been dead. But that was 2008, was the last time I attempted my life. And then all this other stuff happened. And then I went through resiliency training, and that's when I learned a lot about myself, a lot more of what I was dealing with outside of PTSD, depression, anxiety. Survivor's guilt is a real fucking thing. And I didn't even learn that I had that until 2019. But moving into 2018, I became an instructor, E6, it was a whole new start to my career. And that also helped save me and restart my drive, my motivations. Had a fantastic group of individuals while I was at the schoolhouse that showed me what appreciation looked like, showed me what proper motivation was and how to help motivate myself and have that drive to do for me. And I spent 4 years as an instructor, and every 22 days, I told this same story. That's when I learned that resiliency, if used the right way, works. Because I would tell that story to students, and then individuals you'd never think would talk about trauma in their life started talking. I actually had a student who was telling me one cycle that prior to coming to BLC, to that course, basic leaders course, he had a gun in his mouth and was about to pull the trigger, and then just something clicked and said, no, you've got to go to this training tomorrow. Another student who gave me permission to kind of somewhat talk about their situation was a quiet person. And after I told my story, he actually sat there and told the class that about his trauma. He was being sex trafficked when he was a child because he was put into foster care and got sex trafficked for a couple of years until he was old enough to actually stay away from the system. And that's when he joined the Army. That healed me, being able to tell my story and help others. That helped heal me more than any training could. And that's when I realized, like we try to say in TROA, stop the stigma of mental health. And that's what I pushed myself to do every day, was when I felt that my story could be heard and used the right way, I would always talk about it. Even though there's still times that it chokes me up, or when I think back, I mean, because when you've got depression, you unfortunately can, in my mind, my understanding, you'll never get rid of it. But
True.
you learn ways to see when it's coming and then stop, or not stop it, but divert it. Essentially deal with it. So
You learn to live with it.
yes, you learn to live with it. But when you start to heal is what I think is when you're able to use it to help someone else. And seeing in my students that I was able to help them. And I'm still friends with quite a few of my students. Female students would tell us during class that they were raped and talk about how they never felt comfortable talking to anybody about these things. And that's when I realized, holy crap, I'm helping them with change, like to break what they're used to, and they're talking about these things and actually getting help. And I've had students reach back, even not too long ago, found me on Facebook, and it's like, hey, you still at the schoolhouse? It's like, no, I just retired back in February. And they're like, damn, I was sending one of my soldiers to you. Like cats that were E6, E7 themselves after that got promoted after that. And they were excited to try and send their students to me. So that was another good feeling. But that time ran out, and I ended up getting promoted again to E7, Sergeant First Class, where I became a platoon sergeant. And then I had anywhere between 30 to almost 50 soldiers under me. And that was definitely a big change in my life. Not used to line unit stuff again, like grunt work in a sense. Having to get used to that, being administration side of the military at that point, but still trying to help soldiers. And for a while, the 2 years that I was in E7 with my previous unit definitely opened my eyes to a lot of different things, but also a different way of helping. And it was very beneficial for me. But yeah, since of course COVID and everything, I ended up getting married, having kids, to where I'm almost a decade in. Well, I say almost, it's not quite that long. We're 7 years in. And
Wow.
yeah.
That's how long me and mine been together.
Yeah, we got
7 years.
married. I want to say legally married 4 years ago, right before the baby was born. But we've been together for 7 years. Me and my wife.
Yeah, we're still working on that marriage thing.
Just thinking back, it's like, wow, literally 10 years ago today, I was homeless. No house, no car, nothing to my name. And now here I am, a father, a husband, 4 kids in the house, hers, mine, and ours kind of thing. And just this year, meeting all of y'all, thanks to that knucklehead up there, Gamble, and being a part of something again after retiring from the military 23 years. It baffles my mind, even though I've seen it, I walked it.
It just goes to show that all the things that someone goes through, you know, all the trauma that one endures,
Yeah.
you know, whether or not, you know, you have a mental illness or go through mental crisis, you can prevail. You can endure. You can go from being homeless, being on the streets, suffering, to now being a father, married, living in a home, being part of something bigger than yourself and succeeding. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And I say you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think our stories, they don't define us. They define our how we are as a resilient person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like everything that we go through in our lives, I think that's what makes us who we are, not our past,
Yeah.
in a sense. So we're gonna go ahead and switch gears now. That was an amazing story of mental health and your journey in general. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. No.
And
No
I
problem.
think our viewers will really appreciate it too. I kind of want to go into a little. I'm going to go from the mental health into another avenue.
Okay.
Can you go ahead and tell us well, what you do at TROA? And I guess, yeah, let's just hear what you do.
Well, all right. So I was kind of forced into this position because really all I wanted to do.
Force the willing.
Yeah, you can't force the willing. But currently I am the C.O.O., which means I'm the Chief Operating Officer. I essentially make sure that the entire organization, down to the lowest, I guess, peon, is doing what we need to do to drive forward, to continue with the mission of ending the stigma, of helping our communities, helping vets, helping first responders, helping everyday Joes or people in their struggles with mental health, and hopefully helping people see the light at the end of the tunnel. I started out kind of getting into TROA on a whim, or aligning with, of course, the overall mission of TROA, but wanting to help out with design and the gaming side, because I kind of started as the voice on the streaming side of TROA, promoting it, because I've been streaming now on Twitch for 5 years, and yeah, so I came in as just a content creator, as a voice for the organization, and it evolved in the last few months to where.
For all those that don't know, go ahead and follow NLMP on Twitch.
Oh, shut up.
NLMP on Twitch.
Anyway, but yeah, it evolved, and I guess my mentality, my sergeant attitude towards things, and making sure we were all still kind of moving forward with plans. And then, of course, recently with TROA signing an agreement with the VFW as a collaborative force to help the VFW and CTG, which is their gaming division, combat tested gaming. Well, we, as in TROA, started to grow a lot faster, and it's sky's the limit now. And then ambitious ideas need to have a little bit of structure, and from what I was told, I was to be that structure, and reluctantly accepted the COO position to help.
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly, yeah, to help you, the president, and Gamble, the vice president's ideas become a reality.
Well, on behalf of myself, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for keeping the momentum moving when sometimes there's stuff that we can't really get moving.
Yeah,
because I like to move in weeks and or days, not weeks.
Yeah, and thank y'all for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we'll go ahead and go to the next question.
So Joker, starting off, can you tell me a little bit about your gaming journey? Like, what got you into gaming? Like, what's the first game that really caught your attention, that drug you into the gaming atmosphere?
Yeah, I'm gonna be telling my age with this one. Galaga.
Oh, fuck
wow.
you. That was gonna be mine, but I blurted out freaking Duck Hunt.
Yeah, Galaga. My dad actually had an Atari when I was younger. Like I remember I was like 3 or 4, and I would sit there with an unplugged Joy-Con and act like I'm playing while he's playing Galaga. And then he got me into Pong, and of course he whooped my ass every time. But it was an Atari and Galaga that got me into gaming. But Mario, of course, on the NES. When I was a preteen, I had probably 20 or 30 games for the Nintendo system. I had a Game Genie, which was it felt like hacking because you plugged it into.
You cheater.
Oh, yeah. I had the book and everything. My mom worked for Toys R Us growing up. I had everything, dude. I had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had Total Recall, Battletoads. I mean, you name an NES game, I probably had it. So that's what got me into gaming. But what got me into the universe of modern gaming has to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Because to me, that was one of the first games that actually is like, wow, this is not real, but it's real, you know? It feels real. And then, of course, when Modern Warfare 2 came out way back when, like what, 2005, 2006, something like that. And then multiplayer started to kick off even higher than Halo days. Because even on the Xbox, the original brick, the black and green brick, of course, LAN servers where we would sit there and bring a TV and a fucking Xbox and about 60 foot of Cat 5 cable for someone to host a server at their house. But yeah, Modern Warfare 2 got me into competitive gaming and multiplayer work and org stuff like clans, gaming clans, because that's where I met a group that I ended up essentially being leadership with them until we kind of just disbanded, i.e., me going to Afghanistan. And I stopped gaming with them as often. And of course, the story about my drop from society mentally, but was the Wanted 52. And the rank structure was based on a deck of cards, a 52 set of cards. And the aces were division, like each suit was a type of gameplay. You had running guns, you had heavy machines, you had medics or support, and then you had snipers. I started out as the king, which was second in command of the snipers group, and ended up being the ace by the end of it. And they showed me that gaming has camaraderie, has a family that you don't necessarily have to know face to face to play games with every day and know these people. That's what got me into competitive gaming.
Awesome. So besides TROA and Wanted 52, has there been any other orgs or clans you've been a part of, or just those two?
Prior to essentially living my life in TROA now, shortly after I started streaming back on Twitch, I met some individuals. One is Atari Stars on Twitch, and the other one's Death's Dude 2. Right after I got affiliate back during COVID, I met Death, and then Death, of course, brought her along, and they actually helped me create the Madhouse, which is, I guess you could call it a community, a gaming community that I ran. I created the Discord for us, and we grew over the course of years, bringing people in from all over the world, making friends from Australia, Britain, Germany, Canada, Mexico, and even for a little while we had some people in South Korea and Vietnam hanging out with us. So yeah, I mean that was the closest thing to a clan or an organization after the Wanted 52 and before TROA.
Right on. That's awesome.
So sounds like you've got some really good the leadership aspect. So I know that you have the NLMP or Madhouse, the website. Was an idea for that to be like a kind of like what TROA is? What were your goals with the NLMP, I guess, brand in a sense?
Actually, the NLMP branding started out as just my photography. Because I started photography after I told you, like, my squad leader saved me essentially from being homeless and helping me get back on track with life and society. But I ended up buying a photography camera from a Canon and got into photography. And NLMP started out as No Laughing Matter Photography. Well, over time, I rebranded to No Laughing Matter Productions, which is now essentially photos, video, and design. And when I started streaming, I was like, wait, I already got this brand. Why don't I just use it? And that's when I started out with the big smile, like Joker looking smile. And funny enough, the teeth set up on that old thing with this tongue sticking out is actually a tracing from one of my burrow laugh smiles that I had one time. And so those are actually traced off of my own teeth that I used to have before the Army took the front four out of the top of my head. So yeah, and then of course recently rebranding when I came back to streaming after being full-time with the Guard as an instructor, I rebranded to the now little skull with the stained upper lip. But yeah, NLMP started out as a photography thing and then ended up into the Madhouse, which was originally created just for individuals, like people that didn't fit into a specific genre of gaming.
Yeah.
To come in and hang out with other like-minded individuals. And we ended up, I think, currently, even though no one's really active in the Discord, we've got over 157 members of the Madhouse.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so in a few years' time, like 3 years' time, we gained 157 people all across the world.
That's awesome. That's a great accomplishment.
Thank you.
What about gaming is beneficial for mental health?
To me, I've noticed like communication skills in modern gaming have like people that would absolutely not be social or even sociable in a public setting are absolutely making friends, making connections with individuals all across the world. I have, and I know other people have, like my 15-year-old who didn't really connect with people his age until he started gaming. And now he's got friends. He's got I guess essentially his best friend is in Florida. He's never met him in person, but he games with him just about every day that we let him. So social skills that normally wouldn't be a thing are helping people be social and learn those skills. Hand-eye coordination. I get asked all the time in shooting games, how did you notice that? It was like a speck. One of our friends, Cruz, compliments me, I guess, when we're playing like Escape from Tarkov. But hand-eye coordination, and then reasoning, deductive reasoning, like as shooter games, you got to pick and choose your enemy. You get good enough, you don't actually do friendly fire all the time, but games like Ready or Not, where you have to be careful what and who you shoot. I mean, there's multiple benefits for games. Like recently, one of the discussions we were having, especially with vets, like with me, it helped me with my early PTSD because I couldn't go to sleep for the longest time unless I was listening to war sounds like explosions and gunfire. I couldn't go to bed unless I had like Band of Brothers up or some other war movie. And then I got into Battlefield, Bad Company 2. I got into Battlefield 4. And then competitive shooting games of Call of Duty and other first-person shooters, and just I felt calm. And then on top of that, like anxiety or stress, it helped me release it without hurting myself or anybody else.
Do you think it's possible that games like this, like milsim games for vets, help us find, re-find our identity once we've lost it, once we're out of the military for some time?
Absolutely.
Like I know for me, once I got out of the Marine Corps, I was lost. The Marine Corps was the only thing I knew myself as. That's all I trained my life to be. And then when I was out, I was nothing.
Yeah.
But in a video game with the tactics, with the language, working as a team, it brings you back, and you're just in that scenario, the warfare.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you have a veteran brother working with you side by side, is it possible that it brings you together and you almost find that identity again?
Oh, absolutely. I will die at the top of that hill that it absolutely helps with that. I can tell you personally, one of my best friends right now is Cruz, that guy, 133rd, because of the connection I built with him in war games. And like War Thunder, I mean, it's thanks to him that I even ever started playing that. Escape from Tarkov, the nights that me and him just sat there in factory and were communicating, moving, shooting, and communicating, covering each other, and then moving into Hell Let Loose. He's the one that got me back into that and playing those games, just moving, shooting, and communicating. Nothing else matters. Just like deployment, when you have a soldier that goes on deployment and comes home, they're not the same, and they didn't have to experience a thing outside of being there. But having that type of environment, even digitally, has, for me, it has absolutely helped. When I need an escape from the BS around me, war games or something that is infectious like Satisfactory or Star Citizen, immersion into those worlds, it takes everything else away. So yes, I absolutely agree with you on, does it help vets? And if it doesn't, then that's just not that individual's thing. But what's interesting is one of the very first multiplayer games to ever exist, like shooting an FPS game, was made by the US Army.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement with you. I'm right up on that hill, and I'll die with you on it. I agree. Milsim games can definitely help vets overcome mental illness, and it's definitely a benefit.
Well, yeah, and then too, like I was saying, the very first milsim was actually made by the US Army, and it's called America's Army. That
Hell yeah.
it was originally a training tool for the US Army, and then it was released to the public after the Army said, oh, it doesn't really help with anything because they didn't have the programmers to get it to what it is today. What it is today is Arma.
What's funny about that game, when it was America's, or maybe it wasn't that game. What did it come? Was it released America's Army?
Yeah, to the civilians, it was released as America's Army. But yeah, that was the Arma is the OG milsim. And if it wasn't for the US Army, we wouldn't even have DayZ today, because DayZ ended up as a mod on Arma. So it's amazing how things come around that go around.
DayZ, meh.
Street used to swear by DayZ back in the DG days.
Oh, I've heard stories from people.
All right, moving on. So we've asked some pretty interesting questions. So we're gonna get down to our final two. Well, technically 4. What has been your experience in dealing with the VA, Veterans Affairs?
Oh God, yeah. Well, any vet that has to deal with the VA, Veterans Affairs Department, knows that it's a godsend, but it's also absolutely horrendous to deal with. I say a godsend because it is my medical insurance. It is my medical ability to get anything done, especially in recent years with all the different types of stuff. But the VA is worse than the DMV. Like everything you hear about the DMV, the lines, the disgusting like aura, it's 100-fold at the VA. Now, yeah, there are some VA hospitals or some VA units out there, like urgent care type units that are very clean, very modern, and very caring. But 80% of them are not that way. Now, there are individuals that, from my experience within the VA system, volunteers and some doctors that actually care about the vets, but overall, it's like they don't. I can't tell you how many out of the last 12 years that I've been in the VA system that I've dealt with individuals that are medical professionals that do not give a shit about the individuals they're taking care of. It's just a rotation, a medical rotation that they're working on. But thankfully, with the wonderful wife that I have here recently, I've been one of the lucky few vets that have started to get the process rolling with the VA to get medical treatment and medical exams to see what's wrong with me. Because since Afghanistan, I've got nerve damage up and down the left side or the right side of my body. I've got half a hand that I still can't feel, and chronic pain that no one can explain where it's coming from. And this is in the medical field, like the actual VA medical field and civilian side, because there's community care services now that they send you out to local medical facilities within the area. And parking at a VA, good luck. You're going to spend an hour and a half just trying to find a parking spot because of all the old vets from Vietnam, Korea that are there every day or all day.
Yeah, and I think in order to get care in the community, your appointment has to be 3 months
or more
greater out.
For them to be
So
able to see you for that very reason.
Right. So you're not going to get care in the community unless the VA can't see you within 3 months.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, like I said, thanks to my wonderful wife who put a fire up under the VA's Washington branch, i.e. their top dogs, and what they call shit rolls downhill. Well, it rolled back to the local VA, and they finally gave me a call and started getting me in on a regular basis.
So have you been through the comp and pen process?
Yes. So I started it back in, I received my first percentage, which is unfortunately still the current percentage until these medical exams get finished and I get it reinstated to then, because they took it, I had to stop it. But yeah, no, 2013, I got my first percentage from being released from deployment at 30% overall compensation, which is interesting because they denied my depression, and but they gave me a TBI percentage of 10% for TBI, 10% for half the hand that I can't feel, and 10% for my back, which I could not run for the Army anymore since 2013. That's all I got. But recently with the treatments and stuff, until I redo my compensation for them to evaluate my percentage rating. They have finally accepted that I have depression and PTSD and anxiety. So those will definitely be added soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I've noticed that with the VA, your first decision, disability percentage is always, they always lowball you. Mine was my first disability decision was they gave me a 20, and then you either have to appeal it or file a new claim.
Correct.
And then they'll spit one the real percentage back out at you.
Yeah,
and
because
then you just have to keep on at them from there.
yeah,
Which I don't know why they do that. It's just
well, so they do that way because one, unless a vet is 30% or more, they don't have to pay you. They are not required to pay you if you're under a 30% disability. It's at 30% that one, you are then, or 30% service connected is when the VA has to compensate you with a payment. That is the lowest they are required to start paying you. And of course, the more of a percentage you are, the closer to a full pension you get. And I've seen some vets get 100% and only get $2,500 a month. I've also seen soldier or vets with 100% that get $4,500 a month. And if a vet is in and the VA recognizes you as 100% in any or 70% or more in one area, so like one line item, you can medically retire from the military if you're still an active member of any component.
okay.
But if you're 100% in any one area, you are then considered 100% disabled to the working force. And you essentially can't have a job either outside of that, like, profit.
Okay. See, I'm not familiar with all that. I have, I think, 270s, and then the rest are smaller percentages, like 40s,
Yeah.
and then I have my hearing, which.
But on an overall scale, I mean, you could be 100% and still able to work.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, now again, this is just knowledge that I've collected over the last 20 some years. Mainly in the last 12 years since I've started to have to get into the realms of disability, and considering like I can't even work a civilian job because I'm only qualified for blue collar work. And I actually had to quit my second job out of the military within a year because it just hurt too damn much. And my wife was like, your quality of life's going down. So like, okay. So now we're playing the VA game, waiting for my retirement paperwork to come in so I can get my compensation turned back on and start using it again, or getting paid again from the VA.
So if a young veteran who is about to go through the VA process of filing for compensation and pension, or possibly looking at retirement, do you have any advice for them he or she going through that process?
Don't stop.
Like,
Keep pushing. And I hate to say it like this, but sometimes you got to stop lying to yourself, because that's a lot of vets' problems, is that they lie to themselves because that's what they're used to. Drink water, take some ibuprofen, you're fine. No, you're not. You're not fine. You need to stop lying to yourself as a veteran to make to deal with what you're used to dealing with. You need to tell them if you're in fucking pain, you're a 10 or a 5, whatever their current scale is. But if it's an 8, it's an 8. Just because you're used to it and you can work through an 8 doesn't mean it's not an 8 on the pain scale that they give you. You need to tell them what you're feeling, not what you think it is.
I would say that's excellent advice.
All right. So we've definitely covered quite a bit with Joker's story, man. You are one resilient motherfucker, I'll tell you that. I'm happy you're here.
I'm just here. It's nothing big. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, that brings us to our closing and our final and last question. So tell us what the biggest thing you're excited about for TROA is.
Working with the VFW in multiple ways, but trying to use the gaming aspect to bring more young blood into the program, the association, because right now, I mean, the VFW is like it always has been, a bunch of old farts sitting at a bar, drinking beers, shooting pool and playing bingo, where you got guys from my era that have nothing to do with the VFW. That to me is a problem because you get factions or associations like that have old blood in it and you never get new blood in it. So to me, that's something I'm excited about for the near future, is working with the VFW and going up and trying to get them modernized so that families, the younger kids that come back from Afghanistan, come back from Iraq or Syria or Poland or whatever, that new blood of soldiers and officers that come back from modern wars, to give them something to come to and enjoy what past generations have been able to enjoy about the VFW, the camaraderie, and working with, like I said, from the national level down to these different posts and modernizing them so that they can bring in more new blood. So that's kind of what I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, it's been really good conversating with you, Joker, and I think we've learned a lot about who you are as a person and general a individual as well, not just from your past, but how your leadership style is, how you think. Before we go ahead and close out, does anyone have anything else that they want to say?
Yeah, Joker, I just wanted to say, first off, thank you for sharing your story. Whether we're able to help one person or 1,000 by sharing the trauma that we've experienced, I think it's worth it. It's not, I can only imagine, it's not easy to share what you experienced by losing members of your unit, losing your parents like that, going through that trauma. But you came on here, you told us your story, and I commend you for that. And thank you for coming on here. And I thank you for what you continue to do daily here at TROA.
Thank you both for the opportunity. And honestly, I want to thank you, Gamble, for your whimsical, out of nowhere idea to start this podcast.
Yeah, very, very much. One night we're just sitting in there and Gamble blurts out, "Hey, why don't we start a podcast?" And me and Joker are like, "Yeah, let's do it." And here we are.
Yeah.
All right, Joker, you got anything that you want to say last minute to anybody?
Oh God, man, you put me on the spot. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's easy.
Yeah, I know, right? Fuck. I'll just repeat what I said earlier. Even though you don't think someone needs to hear it, talk about what's bothering you, because whether you think you need to express it or not, find someone to talk to, because it may not only help you, but maybe the individual you choose to tell needed to hear that they're going through something similar, because everybody's pain is caused by different things, but what you feel inside is all the same. And sometimes someone just needs to know that someone else knows what they're going through.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. And we look forward to doing more of our podcasts with a new future guest. You all have a good night. That is my kidney shot.
The forge is bled. The dwarf spoke secrets long since dead. In Alfheim starlight filled our soul with songs that made the broken whole. In Jotunheim the frost giants roared. We stood our ground, we drew no sword, but earned respect through test and pain. The mighty fall, the true remain. To raven whisper, winds still howl, through thorn and mist, through tooth and jaw, across the roots of Yggdrasil. Our purpose drives, our hearts are still. With every friend and every fall, we carve our names on Odin's wall. In storm or flame, we won't disarm. To raven whisper, we march strong armed. Helheim's gates, the shadows near. We walked through sorrow, faced our fear. But Fenris how could not divide the shield wall forged in fire and pride.